There. So welcome everybody. Today we are going to be talking about the benefits of mushrooms and garlic and onions and things like that. We do have a special guest. He's actually out behind that curtain. He should be coming in soon. But we have guests just still signing on. So I'm going to give it another couple of minutes, okay? Sound good? I promised I would take notes for Carl, so I'm going to do so. 1 second.
Oh,
hi. Good to see you today, Yvette. I still have people signing on, so I'm just going to wait another minute or two. All right. And I'm just writing down who's online, so I have an idea. There we go. There's Mark coming in.
Okay.
All right.
How are we doing? Is there lots more people yet, or?
There's a few more, but quite a few of them signed on late, Mark, and so I'm just going to go ahead and introduce you and get you started, okay?
Okay.
So everybody that's here today, we had discussed last week that we would talk about mushrooms, the benefits of mushrooms and garlic and onions and things like that. And I thought one thing I know about mushrooms is that Mark here is our special guest, and actually is a professional mushroom grower, and he's also a fantastic chef when it comes to cooking with mushrooms, and he actually does some teas and a bunch of products with mushrooms as well. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and I'm going to make sure everybody is muted here, all right, so we have no background noise, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Mark. You can introduce who you are and what you do and talk about your organic mushrooms or how you're growing them and everything about mushrooms.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. So hi, everybody. My name is Mark Biot. I'm proprietor of Mark's Mushrooms with an X. I started growing mushrooms about 4.5, 5 years ago now. I started off growing oyster mushrooms, which are fairly easy to grow. What happens is we grow them on sterile sawdust. So we sterilize grain, and we move a tiny bit of the fungi from a petri dish into the sterile grain. And then from that grain, when the mycelium eats it completely, we move it on to sawdust. And then once that's done, we cut the bag and we put it in a room with some humidity. And that pretty much works for most mushrooms, but some are wood eaters and some are secondary decomposers like button mushrooms. They use compost, a little bit of straw, and sometimes manure. But the manure is more just a nitrogen thing, just like in your garden. You want high nitrates to get better fruits or whatever. It's the same thing in the long run. So I started about 4 or 5 years ago because my grandfather was battling with cancer, and I had seen Paul Stamets talk about his mother online on a TED Talk, and she was going through Taxol treatment, and her doctor suggested for her to go on turkey tail mushroom to help her immune system stay balanced while she was going through the Taxol treatment. Taxol itself is actually fungi-derived. There's quite a few, obviously, of our medicines that are fungi-derived, and sometimes when they're not fungi-derived, they're actually from the compound in a plant that is there because the fungi, the intracellular fungi, make it there. So the taste of spearmint is because of the fungi present in the plant. A lot of triterpenes and terpenes are responsible because the fungi put them in there in the first place. And some people think that that's for us to be attracted to those plants. Some people think that's how they can kind of contort the cellular enzymes to make them into medicines and all that sort of thing. Chocolate itself actually goes through a fungal process, and that's how it becomes a little bit more smoother and less bitter. Even when it's dark, it's still got that fungal process. Yeah, so I started growing them, and because we had checked out Paul Stamets' site, and he had been growing mushrooms. He gave his mom turkey tail, and she lived for another 20 years, and all the cells were doing pretty good after the treatment and everything. So they found the turkey tail really helped. And now an older one is reishi, Ganoderma lucidium, and that's been used since ancient China. And it's found to have polysaccharides, and so is turkey tail, polysaccharides and triterpenes that are supposed to help kind of keep the cells in check. So there's some sort of anti-tumor benefit to it. There's some cellular growth situations where it's like your immune system, it keeps it balanced. We're calling a lot of these things nootropics or adaptogens. And those adaptogens are helping the body sort of balance out in the ways that some of our environments have made us not balanced. And some of those adaptogens are reishi, cordyceps, and lion's mane's one that's mostly for the brain and nerve damage. But yeah. So what I do is because most extracts are best when they're made in a tea, I decided to turn most of the medicinal mushrooms I have into teas. So I have turkey tail with green tea, and then I have lion's mane with chai tea. And I just made a coffee, actually, that has maitake, which has been found to be really helpful with the cell replication. And then it's got maitake, chaga, which is another high antioxidant one. However, when there's a lot of antioxidants, you want to watch where your kidneys are at, because too many antioxidants can be damaging if you have kidney problems. So there's chaga, there's maitake, there's lion's mane for the brain, and then there is reishi. And reishi's been found to help with sleep and anxiety as well as those triterpenes.
And Mark, what about the shiitake mushrooms?
Shiitake mushrooms are fantastic for blood pressure, actually. They're almost like better than the medication we have. And gum disease and blood pressure are a big thing for shiitake. I don't know about the research on anything else at this point, but they have found a lot of benefits to shiitake even themselves, and they're something you can enjoy eating. Just eating on their own. Same with lion's mane. You can it's really soft and spongy, so you have to sort of make a faux chicken nugget or fry it like a crab cake. But these are two that are actually edible, whereas your turkey tail and your reishi and all that, they're hard conch mushrooms, so they take some sort of kind of work, grinding down and boiling kind of deal.
And what other products do you have besides tea?
Oh my, geez. My mix box has grown. I don't know if I had my mix box when I met you. Did I, Kathy? So my gourmet mix box has shiitake, king oyster. It has regular oyster, which is blue. We have pink oyster, which are like shrimp, which is amazing. It's got lion's mane, and it's got maitake and enoki in it. So up to 7 or 8 different mushrooms now in just one box for $10. And then we sell them all individually. And then now I'm working with a forager, and he's been getting me some amazing actual wild forage mushrooms, which has been really nice. We had chanterelles, and we had a whole bunch of really nice stuff. Bear's head, which is like a sister species of lion's mane.
And can you tell me maybe share with us some good recipes that you use mushrooms with?
So I think the best way to start, especially for most of us when we're European and stuff, is to saute the mushrooms and treat them like seafood. You don't want to overcook them, because usually that's what makes mushrooms rubbery, and that's usually the first thing that people don't like about mushrooms. So if you treat them like seafood, saute them in your choice of fat, preferably butter if you're not vegan, and then just set them aside. And then just like meat, you want to use that sauce and the scrapings to make your sauce. Now I suggest a white sauce with garlic and Parmesan, because the white sauce and the garlic and Parmesan, the garlic absolutely is always fantastic with mushrooms. And then your Parmesan, again, has that fungi in it that kind of triggers the taste buds to go, wow, this is either really strong or really tasty, right? So I start there. You do some onion and you do some garlic. You make a white sauce with a roux and some milk or cream, and mix the garlic in there, a bit of noodles, and it's like a fantastic gourmet meal. And it's actually pretty easy. There's not really any real measurement that needs to happen. You're just kind of mixing it all in. And as long as you have either cornstarch or you can make a roux with flour and butter, then you can thicken it up too.
Wonderful. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about mushrooms?
So I do know that polysaccharides. Okay, so I mentioned polysaccharides earlier. In Japan, what they did is they have a chemically enhanced way of making polysaccharides from the mushrooms. They call PSK, and PSK is one of the treatments for anti-tumor situations. So I know that's kind of in the works now. And I know that this mushroom thing is really growing. So there's a lot of therapy coming out too with everything that's going on, and that's always, up to everybody. But it's really been kind of neat to watch it all grow as I was sort of at the beginning of it,
Absolutely. So I'm going to share with people the 10 benefits of mushrooms. And Mark, if you want to add anything as I talk about it, you go ahead, okay?
Okay.
The first one is that it contains cancer-fighting properties. And, of course, we know that maitake and crimini and portobello, oyster, and white mushrooms, that out of all of them, that they are actually found to be quite significant in suppressing the growth of cancer cells. That we know, and that especially breast cancer, by the way. And also shiitake mushrooms contain a product called lentinin. Now, lentinin, yes, is a sugar molecule, you believe it or not, but it's associated with extending the survival rate of cancer patients. And this has been heavily studied in Japan. The second thing we do know is that it boosts the immune system. And even though we don't really think too much about, we know that your gut health is really critical, and that the beta glucans that are actually in mushrooms are really good at boosting your immune system, and they really work by increasing your T1 lymphocytes, and we know that it's the lymphocytes that really also help with some of the management of anti-inflammatories. And I think overall that why would we not be eating mushrooms if just for those two pure benefits alone? And also, as you mentioned, that the shiitake have a good record of lowering cholesterol levels, and of course helping with your blood pressure. And then also they also have vitamin D in them, of all things.
Yeah.
Yes, and they've been known to fight aging. Well, I don't know about you guys, but fighting aging sounds good to me.
Vitamin D too, right? It's a happy chemical. They produce it the same way we do. So when you grow mushrooms, you have to make sure that they get a bit of sunlight near the end of their life cycle after you pick them, because they'll produce vitamin D by absorbing the sunlight. And they're the only natural source where they're doing that, and we can consume it, and it's actually digestible by the body because it doesn't have to pass the blood-brain barrier. It can actually just get right in. Most vitamin D supplements need to be taken with some sort of fat or something so that it can get through the blood-brain barrier, and that mushrooms are almost always with fat, right? So
another added benefit here is it aids digestive health. And what's interesting is that mushrooms are rich in some of the trace minerals, being selenium. And selenium is really important because it actually is critical in preventing cell damage and it helps your body with to make proteins. And I think what was interesting is that we know very little about not as many studies are done on selenium, and I do know that we don't produce selenium on our own. All right, so we need to get it into our diet, and one of the richest way to do that is to use mushrooms. Okay, it's a healthy source of selenium, and they do know that from studies that people with bladder cancer that have mushrooms, that eat mushrooms, actually they see the healing properties in relation to that as well. And I hate to always mention this, but when it comes to diabetic management, some of the interesting things that we need to know ourselves is that on the glycemic index, mushrooms are 0,
Yep.
so are very, very low. And so, please add them to your diet. You can put them in soup. You can put them in your salads. You can put them on the barbecue. And there are so many wonderful things you do. One of my favorite recipes is I take mushrooms, onions, and garlic, and I put it in one pan. And I don't use butter, Mark. I usually use extra virgin oil, and
There you go. That's good for you too, right?
I put in the Parmesan, and I also put some that mushroom oil, that heavy mushroom oil that tastes really good.
Truffle?
Yeah, the truffle oil. Yeah, and that's really quite nice. And so I put that aside, and then I cook red and green peppers, and I then combine them, and I put that on a salad. And so I don't, because I have all those nice, when I combine them, you've got all those nice juices when they're combined. I don't use any kind of salad dressing, and it makes a very nice vegetarian meal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've always found that. And there's such a plethora of flavors and textures. I know sometimes they're kind of intimidating, but if you kind of dive into some of the other ones, it's like the truffles, right? Nobody would have ever known that stinky thing that's in the ground under a tree was good unless the pig started to go for it. But it's so amazing. It's such a strong, wonderful flavor. I say they're like the cheese of the health world because they've got the flavors of cheese, but they're not so fattening. They're not so high in caloric density. Right? And that gut microbiome we were talking about, so there's prebiotics, probiotics, and biotics, right? And so with the mushrooms, the fiber from the mushroom is actually like a prebiotic, and it's feeding the gut microbiome in ways that, like a lot of the fibers we get from our vegetables, which have been kind of genetically modified to be what they are now. Let's remember that most of the vegetables we eat now were never edible before, but mushrooms have always been mushrooms. They've never really changed over the last, like as far as we know, 5,000 years. So, yeah.
So you're right, and of course it's the fiber in the mushrooms that are exceptionally good for our diet and our gut. So, which is wonderful. And you know what? I mean, you want to look at obesity. Why are we not using things that are low in glycemic diet? Also, when we look at that, it's the fiber alone that you have that satiated feeling. And so you're going to feel more full with eating mushrooms, and especially if you're adding, like I did in the salad. And it's actually, your satiety point is, I find I'm quite satisfied. So it's nice to be able to use mushrooms and garlic and onions together to just augment everything you do. And the nice, while we're on topic and we're talking about garlic, the benefits of garlic, and it accentuates that wonderful taste in that mushroom, is that it too boosts your immune system and helps in the reduction of your blood pressure. It does improve brain function. It helps lower your blood cholesterol, the bad cholesterols, in fact, and it actually helps with detoxing the heavy metals.
Yeah.
And, so and of course it aids in digestion. And you know what the nice thing is, when we have properties like this, and we're trying to look at ways to help people, to entice them to eat healthy, and especially when we're looking at a plant-based diet. The nicest thing about a plant-based diet is that it's being able to get additives or things in there that will stimulate your taste buds so that you enjoy a vegan diet. And I one thing I do is I use quinoa. And when I'm cooking after I cook my quinoa, I add mushrooms and garlic, tons of mushrooms and garlic, and spinach and Swiss chard, and there are and peppers, and it is so nice to add to healthy food, and it augments any dish. So
yeah, absolutely.
How does it sound so far?
It sounds fantastic.
So that's so. Is there anything else you'd like to say to that? Because I'm going to open it up to the some of our cancer coaches or ask anyone who wants to ask questions.
I think that's about it. I think that I want to say that I'm glad to see that there's some situations here where people are starting to see some of the benefits of mushrooms. And of course, nothing is a magic pill, but healthy diet, exercise with a good balance of fiber and healthy foods is always going to help you out, right? And I'm glad that we're finding out that these things specifically have compounds in them that are going to go that extra mile with those things. And I guess that's about it.
Well, Mark, I thank you for coming on tonight and kind of supporting our answers and what's there. And I'll send your website to everybody, and
Awesome.
and I'll get that out there. And I will speak to you later, probably tomorrow. Is that okay?
That sounds fantastic.
Thank you very much, Mark, for being on today.
Okay, I'm going to go. I got to work.
Okay.
All right, I'll see you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
So does anyone want to add to our information tonight? I see Maya up there with her hands up.
Well, I actually wanted to ask Mark the question. I was always curious about it. If the farm-grown mushrooms have similar compounds as the wild mushrooms, or they change, are they as potent as the wild mushrooms, or their compound a little slightly different? That's if there's any like a science on that, or any like a background. I mean, like
Right.
any information on that one. I was just curious about that.
I know Mark was in a hurry, which is why.
Yeah, I know. I was waiting to hop on, but then that's okay.
Yeah, but if you go ahead and send me the email, okay, I will get that answer for you back, and I'll report back next week.
Yeah, I always wanted to know that, so I was just like.
And believe it or not, this guy has a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
He's a little shy, and he also just had a ton of dental work done. And he said today was not a good day. But he said, forgive him. He just had a bunch of teeth all pulled, and he said he ended up with he was in a car accident. And and he's getting a rebuild, and he said my teeth are a mess. And however, he's he said the nicest thing about being a mushroom grower, he's eating a lot of mushrooms because they're soft.
Yeah, that's a good way to heal actually faster.
Yeah. And I also know that he has some really great recipes. So I asked him for recipes a couple of days ago, and he's going to send them to me. And then if people give me their email addresses and that and ask, I will forward those recipes because he's a fantastic cook. He's a marvelous cook.
Yeah.
He actually supplies mushrooms to all the gourmet restaurants in our area. So
Is that in Canada?
he also exports to the U.S.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, to those around close to the lake. So Michigan, Ohio, New York. Yeah. So within yeah. But his teas are lovely. And
what's the name of his business again?
Mark's Mushrooms, M-A-R-X. Mark's, I think Karl Marx Mushrooms. But yeah, and so it's really interesting though, like from his family history, that how they got into growing mushrooms, and the healing properties that they witnessed, and he's actually doing extremely well with supplying mushrooms to the U.S. And he can do that because he doesn't use soil.
What does he use? Catherine, do you know what does he use?
I beg your pardon?
I said, do you know what does he use? If he's not using the soil, does he use like wood chips or what does he use?
He's using wood chips. He's using wood chips and sawdust.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. But it depends on what kind of mushroom he's working with. But and he just has rows and rows and rows of greenhouses, and some of them are in shade, some of them are not in shade, and I can't figure out which ones are in which and why. But he's got it down to a science, to an art.
Okay, and he is like he grows them organically?
Yes, they're all organic.
Okay.
All organic, except the one he said he has to use a little bit of manure for the one, but he uses liquid. He doesn't use that's in salt.
Okay.
Everything is organic. He's extremely particular because of health reasons, right?
Yeah.
And so he's it's interesting. So now
sorry.
Does anyone want to contribute to about the information on mushrooms and maybe recipes or things they'd like to share?
I can add one thing though. The mushrooms are very good source of beta glucans. I don't know if you spoke about it or not. The beta glucans are what they a compound that helps blood sugar to control the blood sugar, and especially when it comes to cancer. So balances the blood sugar.
Yes.
That's one of the good compounds of mushrooms.
Absolutely, and I agree. They're really, really good with keeping for especially for diabetic management, and helping keeping that blood sugar stable. And you have to remember when you're looking at when you're going through chemo or radiation, for those who choose that path, that some of the healthier things to eat are mushrooms and some of the juices from the mushroom alone. If you just cook them, if you really are not tolerating the juices from the mushrooms and incorporating them into your what you're eating is very helpful as well.
Yeah. They're delicious. So.
Yeah. I don't know what I would do without mushrooms because I eat a lot. I put them in soup. I put them in salads. I put them in a lot. And anything I'm making, I usually add mushrooms. I make zucchini lasagna, and mushrooms are in there. Like everything, I pretty much And I use a lot of shiitake mushrooms. But often just even the little white buttons, whatever's on sale, sometimes is what I end up getting. But I'm kind of lucky because Marca supplies that whole combination box, and so you get a little variety of everything. And for $10, like the box is like huge.
I used to eat them raw. I didn't know when I when I started eating mushroom, I mean consuming a lot of mushroom. I used to eat them raw, but then I learned that cooked mushroom has actual better benefits than the raw mushrooms.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
So
and,
make sure
and I
you
think
cook
a lot of that is because it absorbs nutrients, right?
Yeah, it's absorbed nutrients and it releases more nutrients when it contacts with heat. So I didn't know that. That's a good thing to know.
It is. It is indeed.
Yeah. It's similar like onions or tomatoes. More you cook, like tomatoes, more you cook, it releases lycopene. Mushrooms similar to that. It releases more compounds when it gets exposed to heat.
Well, and you've got that leaching of all those nice elements. Yeah. Because that's what you're really looking for when you're wanting to look at a balanced diet, or if you want a healthy diet. You want to see what kind of minerals and what's in some of the products, so that you want to see what some of those nutritional values are. And so, of course, for me, with mushrooms being low on the glycemic index, that it makes sense if you're a diabetic man, and you're having trouble with control. It's nice to have that stabilization with the mushrooms. So, does anyone else want to talk about mushrooms or mention anything? How about onions? Maya, have any info on mushrooms? I mean, onions?
Well, onions are. I am not sure. I don't remember all the compounds of onions, but I remember I know onions are have very strong anti-inflammatory, antibacterial properties, very strong.
Right.
And I remember our grandma using them when we get ear infections. They would bake the onion and they would have drops in our ear of baked onions that would take the inflammation and infection down. So it does have a lot of so the onion mixed with honey tincture, onion, if you chop up an onion and cover with honey and let it sit overnight, in the morning it would release the juice, and it's a very strong antibacterial and antiviral. So those are the things I know. I don't know a lot. Onion also high in lycopene. I know that also.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and there's a lot of other properties in onion, and it belongs to a family, Allison's, the garlic family, onion, and so it does have a compounds that anti-cancer properties. So that's how much I know about onions.
Well, what's interesting is I remember as a child, my mother, when we had chest colds. Yeah. Oh boy, you almost hated to tell your mom that you had a cold, because she'd bring out these mustard plasters, right? And it was mustard and onions and honey and and all this good holistic stuff, and it should be plastering our chest, and the bottom of our feet was socks,
Right.
and
yeah,
and garlic. Yeah, and you know what? In 2 days, our colds were gone. We didn't have to have antibiotics. My mother was so into natural healing and medicine, but those good old-fashioned mustard plasters full of mushrooms and onions and garlic, and honey, and it works.
It does.
It does.
Amazingly, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to necessarily be on the body. You can, if you have a sinus infection or you're just feeling a little sniffly, you can put onion on an open-faced platter in the room, and it'll just absorb toxins in the room overnight. And it is helpful for breathing.
Yeah, that's a good one, Zach. Yeah.
Clean air. Yeah. They're also.
No one else wants to sleep in that room.
What's that?
No one else wants to sleep in that room.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just bad humor. But you're right. Well, just think when you're cooking. I mean, and how much it just, the smell fills the room. but the benefits alone are tremendous. So garlic. Anyone have information about garlic? Now I know I'm trying to look who's online here that's really good with our Rose. I know you are pretty good with nutrition as well.
So I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Leo Biscaglia. Have you ever heard of? Is anybody familiar with that author? And he wrote about he wrote a good book, and I forgot the name of the book.
Could you repeat the name? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Pardon me?
I said, could you repeat the name? What was it?
Leo Biscaglia was his name. I think it's. Let me see if I can pull him up.
Yeah, Dr. Leo Biscaglia.
He was a doctor. I did not know that. But I read one of his books. I don't know if it was something about love. You know, Catherine, are you familiar with the name of that book?
I'm not, and but you know what? I read it in nursing school 45 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But Leo Biscaglia is well known. That's Dr. Leo Biscaglia.
Yes.
Biscaglia, I believe.
Is that
so,
living,
yeah.
loving, and learning?
So when Leo was when he was a child, his mother always used to make him wear a garlic around his neck, and I read this in one of his books, and what he realized from that is that when he was a child, he was never sick, and he attributed the garlic, that he had around his neck throughout his childhood. He attributed that to not being sick, and I think I read a little blurb in there about he didn't have very many friends, but he wasn't sick either. But I read a lot about garlic and the benefits of garlic, and because garlic does have such a strong smell, there is actually odorless garlic that's available too. I remember I had a friend years ago that had a bad, I don't know if it was a systemic fungal infection, and she had to eat a lot of garlic, and unfortunately it was really, people started complaining because her body odor was not, it was a strong body odor because of the garlic, and that was one of the suggestions that I had made, is that there are garlic products that are just as effective, but aren't as strong smelling. Yeah, I don't know what other people's experiences with garlic is, but yeah.
I could add, scientists, they did experiment of trying out different vegetables growing in a petri dish, and they would grow cancer cells in a petri dish, and they would take drops of juices from different vegetables like a broccoli, cauliflower, leeks, and all of those things to see the effect on the cancer cells. So the garlic juice basically destroyed all form of cancer cells that was growing. Wow. Whether it was breast, lung, or any other form of garlic was the only vegetable that basically destroyed. Like, for example, broccoli did certain percentage, others did certain percentage, but garlic did 100% on all types of cancer. So it's very extremely beneficial to use for people when they have cancer. Yeah.
Plus the taste of garlic. Garlic is just really we add garlic a lot to our food, and it's just I like the taste of it.
Yeah,
you know,
I love the taste of it.
yeah, yeah, it's got a good taste to it.
I know when I'm exposed to like when I'm around people who are sick or came down with flu or anything, I always would take one. I would mince the garlic, one clove of garlic, leave it on the table for about 15-20 minutes, and then I would just swallow that. I won't chew on it, but I would just swallow before I go to bed. So, and that's like in the morning. That's like my kind of therapeutic, like a way of not preventing myself coming down with something. So that's what I do.
Yeah.
When it comes to garlic. Besides putting garlic in all my, like I make my own home dressings, for example, for salads. I always add 1 to 2 cloves of garlic to almost all my dishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aged black garlic.
Yes, aged black garlic. Yes.
And where do you get that from?
You're right, Greta. Absolutely. And it's good for you. And, it's something that I just wanted to add to garlic. Most people are saying, well, I don't want to take too much garlic. I'm going to stink, and I don't want to be offending people. And my comment to that is, you can go to the health food store. If you really want to be taking garlic, because it really is a good supplement, then go to the health food store and you can get capsules with garlic in it that don't have odor.
Yeah.
And so this is available now. I know you can get them in Canada, so you got to be able to get them in the U.S. I have no doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah.
So you can take a look at that for those who are interested. Anything else? I'm just noticing we have different people coming on and off, and I think it's wonderful to see our audience tonight is changing up a bit, and we're getting some broader folks out there. Do we have any coaches online that want to comment about mushroom, onions, or garlic, or just good healthy eating for that matter?
Or maybe anyone has any questions to ask also.
Yes, please.
It doesn't have to be related to mushrooms or garlic. If they have any questions, yeah, we can answer too.
Absolutely. And you can put questions in chat too. And for those who left me in chat their email address, I'll make sure you get your recipes. So, Zach, did you want to make any comments today about any progress that we're making in relation to changes with Beat Cancer Answers or beatcancer.org? We're delighted to have you here.
There's a whole lot that I'd like to share. I'm not sure what Carl would like to announce himself versus what he'd like to have me share, but for everyone who is on the call, we are in the process of overhauling a lot of the back-end stuff about Beat Cancer and the way that we're working. And the overall goal is to grow the brand in the space, just within the world, and offer more value to the people who choose to work with us. We're going to be expanding our offerings to our coaches and really buckling down and making sure that people who are calling themselves Beat Cancer coaches are acting in a proper coaching capacity. That's all I'll say on that aspect for now. But something else that we're going to be doing is we're going to start hosting a call. In addition to this weekly call, we're going to be doing one that's just for coaches to talk amongst coaches, so we can kind of talk a lot about the business side of things, and people can ask questions and get help on that side of things to run their business and We are going to introduce more business-oriented materials to help with that element as well, because I know it's something that a lot of people don't necessarily know how to do yet. So yeah, there's a lot of other things coming. I don't want to announce anything too prematurely. There's a lot of work that goes into making these changes.
Absolutely. But these are exciting things because I think it's important, especially for the coaches, for continuing education or professional development, and especially for those who are new, to get the added support, because starting a business is not easy in coaching. It takes time and patience, but what I found myself is that all the coaches have been very supportive when I've had questions, especially Maya, and I also find that clients and when they come in and ask a cancer coach, I think most often that I'm seeing people are very satisfied with the answers they've had, which is good, because we get a combination of responses from across the board from our coaches.
Yeah, and the biggest part that helps me understand and kind of get a better grasp on how we can move forward in a more productive manner is understanding where we are. And that's why I've been trying to touch base with as many coaches that we have currently that are willing to speak with me, to just kind of understand who we already have and who's doing what and in what capacity. So if there's any coaches on this call that I haven't spoken with yet, please do send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat, or if you're on if you're looking at the screen, you can see my email under my name right here. And I want to figure out who is who is up to what, and that'll help me moving forward to figure out how to best serve our community.
Great.
I'll put my email in the chat as well.
Wonderful. Because I think it's important that we look at not only development of our coaches, but I want to see growth in our base for those who are starting to come on. And what I'd like to be able to see is that we start developing a rapport with our folks coming on, so that they can feel comfortable asking questions online or just in advance if you have questions. And I know Maya and I will research them, or we'll arrange to get someone who's a specialist in an area, and then talk about anything.
So if we can implement and develop systems that engage our community throughout the week, not just on these weekly calls, then naturally throughout the course of conversation, we will have several topics that can be jumping off points for calls like this, and this way we can be more productive with our weekly calls because we're having minor discussions throughout the week. So that's something that we're looking to develop as well, whether it's on Facebook or on Telegram or on some third-party application that will allow us to structure our community in a comprehensive way. That's again all part of the many things that we are looking to do to kind of overhaul Beat Cancer and bring us into a forward direction.
Well, you're off to a good start, and I know I've spoken to you, and I know there's other cancer coaches you're speaking to, Zach. So it's going to be interesting to see comprehensively some of the information you're getting, so that we can plan and also maybe start planning our program on a monthly basis. Maybe every week or every couple of weeks have a guest who will come in and speak as well. So it'll hopefully help.
Great. Guests are really cool, because then we have specialized information that one coach doesn't necessarily have. If someone dedicated their whole life to mushrooms, they're going to know a whole lot more than probably most coaches. So that's really cool, and also helps build community relations for our organization and other companies out there. Whenever we can support small businesses, like it seems Mark's Mushrooms is a small business as being just himself, that's really cool too. So if we could build partnerships with other brands, that's fantastic. Something that any coach on this call can do, if it is applicable to them right now, to be of big help, is get their directory information filled out. If their directory isn't filled out with, their bio and information about their location and, a nice photo of them on our beatcancer.org website, that would be a huge help, because then it helps the brand be more human. People want to, I want people to be able to log in and see all of our proud faces there on the directory. And something that we're working on the back end to make that directory a better place to be is getting it easier to look through and easier to sort through. We're adding a couple features where people can sort through by location. This way, you can get clients easier, is because people will be able to figure out who is near them. We're going to be able to sort alphabetically. A couple different things that we have working on that will make it a cleaner experience on that directory. So that's something I really want to get filled out for anyone who doesn't have their information put up. Actually, an email should have gone out to you a couple days ago from one of our partners that is working on that task specifically, asking you to fill out that information. So perhaps check your inbox if that is applicable to you, if you're not sure if your directory is filled out or if you know it's not. And it would be a big personal favor if you were to get that filled in, and it would look great for us.
Well, and something that I'm working on right now is, as I've been speaking with the University of Southern Florida, and specifically with Dr. D'Agostino, that's D'Agostino, D''Agostino, Dr. D'Agostino, and he's a cellular physiologist that did a lot of research on with actually the Navy SEALs doing stuff, and under the electron microscope he was looking at the cellular membrane, and he's the one that said, hey, just a minute, the cancer cell has more insulin receptor sites compared to a normal cell membrane. And of course, so what are insulin receptor sites? The purpose is to draw sugar into the cell, right? And supplementing that, why, sugar does not cause cancer, but the sugar, that cancer cell needs the sugar to survive. And it's interesting that they have more insulin receptor sites. So obviously, the cancer cell has adapted and is using those insulin receptor sites to draw that sugar in. And he's been doing a lot of really neat TED Talks online, and he even has some TEDx talks. And so that's something you might want to look into. But most certainly, he's trying to see if he can have a night where he's going to be available to come online and talk to folks about cellular physiology and some of the neat stuff he's discovered as a cellular physiologist in relation to cancer. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's amazing that we have coaches in here that have such high-level connections that end up being a resource to all the rest of our coaches, and that's a wonderful value that you're able to bring, Catherine. So thank you.
Oh well, he's around the corner, right? I'm in Sun City Center, and he's just a half an hour off the road. So the university's right there. But what's fascinating, though, is that he was really interested and want to continue to support cancer coaches, and for that we're giving accurate information ourselves. And he's right. And it's part of our professionalism to ensure that the information we share is accurate and is a good medical resource or good researched information. And this is something I feel will add credibility to us with the Center of Advancement of Cancer Education, and I really feel that this is something that we can build on, and that is on knowledge and accuracy in what we provide.
Yeah, and that's one direction that we're going to go. And like I said, there's a whole lot of changes coming up. Some major, some minor. They're going to vary. So what I'll say to close out is pay attention to emails, please. Pay attention to emails going out, because that's where we'll announce some of our changes, and your participation is very valued, because we're, as an organization, are nothing without our community. So we're very grateful for everyone who logs on to these calls, anyone who participates, anyone who asks questions, answers, tells the word to their friends, and we're only looking to make it more and more worthwhile for you from here.
Yeah. Well, are there any questions right now before we leave? I do notice we have 2 new people that had come on. Oh, one has already left. But Thelma, I think you're new coming on, correct? And Maria as well.
Yes, hi, I'm calling in from Philadelphia.
Hi, Maria. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well. Happy to be here.
Do you have any questions for Beat Cancer Answers that we can help you with?
No, I've been on the email list for a while, but I have a kind of a standing parent group from like 6:30 to 7:30 every other week, so I always want to jump on and can't usually, so I'm happy to be on tonight. So thanks for letting me join in late. Appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. We're delighted to see that you're here and that you're online. And if you have any questions, by all means, we welcome you to our program. And feel free, if you have questions, let us help you find some answers and solutions. That's what we're here for.
Great, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us.
And
So, you know what? It's almost 8 o'clock. So if things are quiet, we will let folks speak.
Thelma was about to speak up.
Oh, pardon?
It sounded like Thelma was about to speak up.
Oh,
I see.
Thelma?
yes, Kathleen. I'm new. I mean, new. Just have a couple of weeks with the mushrooms. My doctor told me, look, you need to eat mushrooms, any mushrooms. But then I've been reading a little bit. I found you guys, and I want to integrate myself with groups of like needs or interests, and I really want to develop my mushrooms, how to cook it. But there's one question that I have now. Like, I go and I get my organic mushroom, shiitake, maitake, lion's mane, but then I feel like a little bit insecure how to keep them in the fridge. Sometimes they get kind of wet and I don't know what's going on. I'll eat them. I'll say, well, if they don't kill me, they will work with me. I'm a stage 4 cancer patient, doing pretty well under the circumstances, but I want to change my diet. I want to start with mushrooms. My question is, how do I keep these mushrooms well in the fridge?
Oh, you know what? I got your tbanella7@gmail.com or was that gmail.com?
Gmail.com.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a hold of Mark and I'm going to ask him and I'm going to email you back. Okay?
Okay, yes.
Because I think it's really important that that's a really good question. I usually put mine in a paper bag with a paper towel in it. Okay? But I'm going to find out from Mark if there's something better that will help them last for 3 or 4 days, or if they're best consumed within a couple of days, and see what he has to say. All right?
All right. Thank you so much.
No, because that's why we're here, and these are the kind of questions we would love to have you ask. So I will get back with you on that. Okay?
Okay. I'm looking forward to the next meeting. I'm really happy to find this group.
Yeah. And can I ask what kind of cancer you have?
I have endometrial diagnosed in 2016, and it came back 5 years later. Right now, I have it in the walls of my belly, and some nodules are coming up in the lungs. They're not worrisome so far, but it's something like to consider along the way. It's just nodules now, So I really need to do anything, whatever, everything that I can now that I can.
So you've come to the right place in asking questions. And you know what? The number one thing you can do to help yourself, especially when you're looking at stage 3, stage 4 cancer, is your diet.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know that 80% of the cancers and chronic illnesses in Canada as well as the U.S. are diet-related issues.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we advocate a plant-based diet, and there are varying coaches that will tell you from plant-based to right through to a strict Gerson diet, and there are other diets that are out there that are wonderful. And I advocate healthy eating, just healthy eating, and cut the sugars, cut the carbs, cut soda, no processed meats. Okay, no processed meats.
No meat.
Cook at home. Okay, because when you're cooking at home, you know what's in that food. I even make my own homemade bread, so there's no chemicals in it. These are the kind of things that, for the first time in your life, you adopt and make changes to your dietary plans. And it's easy.
Catherine. And what I like about mushroom is it is so easy to cook, and they taste so great. Where was I? What happened?
Yeah.
My daughter told me, no. Mushrooms in the morning, mushrooms powder in your smoothies, your fruits, So I am really for stage 4, and this is a very rare, very invasive cancer, and because of the food, the fruits, the discipline of eating what is good for me and eating at home. It's so great to just take care of yourself. It feels like, well, I'm important, So that's something that I'm probably really going to beat this through diet. Of course, I'm not going to run away from the standard treatment, but doctors don't really know about diet. That's sad.
All right. Thelma, I'm going to give you my email address, and I am going to send you an article on healthy eating and antioxidants and a bunch of healthy information that's very general, okay?
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is that one of the very first things I do, oops, I just gave you the wrong email address.
Yeah, I'm ready. I have my pen and pencil, pen and paper.
Yeah. There. Okay, so what's interesting is that I usually, first thing I do is I ask my clients to look at changing a healthy routine in their diet to a plant-based diet, and especially if they're stage 3 and stage 4. And yes, I'll even go, if they want to research the Gerson diet and be really strict, fine, but I'll also give them different diets that are out there and let them explore it. But more than another thing that you can do right away is use a flaxseed muffin and put that every day in your diet, a flaxseed muffin. Don't use the seeds because of bowel issues. Use flaxseed powder, and I use a regular muffin mix, and I try not to use any kind of flour. I use coconut flour and almond flour and things like that, so no gluten. And I use applesauce with no sugar. I make my own homemade applesauce and put cinnamon in it for flavoring. But I add that as an extra moisture, and then whatever else you want to put in it. You can put raisins and craisins and whatever. No chocolate, right?
No chocolate.
Okay, but if you want to put some blueberries in, but and then of course a half a cup of flaxseed that you can get, And what I find is that there's a lot of research right now on flaxseed, and they have found that, and this is you can look up the flaxseed muffin study. It was done at the University of Toronto in Canada, and they found that men who had prostate cancer were started on flaxseed muffins. And these muffins, and what they found is that the cancer actually decreased in size, which means they didn't have such traumatic surgeries. And also, they had apoptosis of the cancer cells. That means the cancer cells actually died. Okay?
Wow.
And it also slowed down the DNA and some of the structures within the cancer cells. And so this is a big study, and it was duplicated in the U.S. and found to be accurate. And China said, well, those North Americans, they know nothing. So they repeated the study, and lo and behold, the same results.
Awesome.
So yes, so flaxseed muffins, and I give flaxseed muffins to my husband every other day, proactively, to hopefully so that he doesn't end up with prostate issues. So why are we not looking at prevention as well, right? Because I think cancer prevention is just as important as treating someone who has cancer. So this, if you want to take a look at, and also go online to Beat Cancer Answers and ask a cancer coach changes that you suggest for your stage of cancer and your type of cancer, and you're going to get some wonderful support from these cancer coaches. If you have questions, ask. That's why we're here. And of course, come back. And if you have questions, if you let us know in advance, Carl, we'll make arrangements. And so will Zach here. You've got Zach's email. Zach, do you have your email out there for everybody?
Yeah.
You can funnel them to me or to Maya, and so she can get a combination of answers. And because I think that's what
Maria has a question there. Maria asked if the muffins that you're talking about are the recipe from Hungry for Health.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you. Hungry for Health it does have them. So, but they're online as well. So, you know what? What's really nice is that we've got some excellent books at beatcancer.org on that talk about recipes and healthy eating. And so I suggest you take a look and see what's available and what you can utilize that'll help you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you so much.
And don't hesitate to ask us questions.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'm going to cut it off for the night because it's 10 after 8 and the next program is due on at 8:30. Everybody have a great week and we'll see you next week. Is there any particular topic you'd like to discuss next week, Zach?
I'm sure there's plenty. We could discuss it throughout the week and figure that out.
Just a minute. I think we have a question here from Rose. Yes, Rose.
No, I was waving good night.
Okay, great. So if anyone has questions or you'd like us to look at a particular topic, please let Maya and I know, or Zach or Cara, and we'll get that up and running for you, okay?
Sorry. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome, everybody. Have a good week, and we'll see you back next week on Beat Cancer Answers. And, of course, online, beatcancer.org, ask close to Cancer Coach. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.